Chapter 2. It begins. When I was around 7 years old, I had a dream, and it was not quite a normal dream that 7-year-olds would envision in dreamland. In my dream, I lived my life with all of its tragedies and all of its pains. The dream seemed to take a lifetime, and at the end, I got to a point that I could not handle, a point when I could not control anything. It got so bad that I took that life in the end. It was a life I could no longer bear to live. I killed myself, only to end up in a place where two shadowy gods told me, you must relive your life until you do not make the same mistakes that lead to your suicide. Yes, boy, you must relive it over and over again without any recollection of your past lives. You will live it over and over again as long as you don't make the same mistakes. You will do this until you get it right, even if that requires all of eternity. One of them booed. Ironically, the dreams mirrored my life. It seemed like I was always making the same mistakes, and in retrospect, I see how the dream not only mirrored me, but how it also created the mistakes I would make. It is as though the dream was not just a dream at all, but rather some kind of guiding force, something pulling the strings of the marionette that I am, creating my fate. Troy, I worry about this dream because now that I've lost you, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I really don't. Things are so chaotic right now. I need something, anything that would put some good in my life, some meaning back into my life. Maybe if I tell you about my past a little more, I can forget these putrid feelings. You're not here anymore. I touch you, but you don't respond. But I hope you can still hear me from wherever you are. Okay, I grew up in California, the youngest of 6 in a distressed Catholic family. My mother and father, both loving and painful creatures, raised me in the country. I lived in an acre of land in a 4-bedroom house in rural Northern California, which to me was the whole world. I was raised during a time in my parents' relationship when they had to yell at each other about things I was too young to fully understand, but old enough to hear. I remember hiding behind one of those living room curtains once. I could hear my mother screaming at my father, "William, son of a..." What the hell were you thinking? I'm your wife. Talk to me. Would you please just talk to me? Her voice screamed and screeched as though he never listened. I was only 5 at the time, so the memory of it is admittedly a little bit distorted, but it is like an old movie with a scratchy old soundtrack playing over and over again every day in my mind. I hide behind the curtain, wishing I could be somewhere else, but I knew that curtain could hide me from their tears. Anger was the prince of that moment, and I was old enough to see and feel the victims in each one of my parents. My dad, having grown up in a physically abusive family, drove at the heart of my mom so she could feel the pain of every punch he received for his childhood punishment. My mother, on the other hand, pounded into his head all the years and tears of emotional neglect she felt from her own parents' separation. They had pushed and pulled at each other for many years before I was born, but it was now my turn to learn from their hate and love for each other, which seemed to be one and the same. They were screaming inside, and they were going to be heard. The moment plays loudly in my head, for it was the moment my parents taught me something, how to argue. "William, are you sleeping with her?" Through the curtain I could see their silhouettes as my father touched my mother's face and spoke. "If I told you the truth, would you believe me?" He said so softly. "If I told you the truth, would you stay or leave? Would you forgive me for those mistakes? Don't ask a question if you cannot handle the answer." Her response was a demand for the truth, and that is what he gave her, in cold, vivid detail. He told her everything, and in the end, his confession drove a wedge. My mother turned her back on him that day. She forgave him, or so she said, but she would spend the rest of their marriage reminding him each and every day how much he had hurt her. They are still together to this day, and I know they love each other in their own way. Not all stones break a window completely. The youngest of 6, I longed for an escape to happiness, and having 4 sisters and 1 brother, my siblings were free entertainment. When I felt bored with one, there was always another looking for my attention. My sister Julie was like a mother to me. She was the middle child and had an overwhelming and almost unnatural desire to nurture all of us, even my parents. Maybe it was because she was born at a time in my parents' relationship when she had to take the role of a parent. When Julie was born, my father started to fool around on the side and with my mother's friends. My mother was hurt and shamed, and as any wife would be, but doubly so because not only did the women she called her friends betray her, but also the man she took to her bed to be her husband, the one who promised in front of God and everyone to love, honor, cherish him, and obey. He was guilty of the worst betrayal of all. My mother turned to the bottle for comfort, as well as late nights with friends who hadn't yet broken her trust. My sister grew up around this behavior and learned at a very young age that her family members needed a mother. I remember all too well my mother being hungover, stoned out of her skull, and my father being angry and frustrated with his situation in life, having to take care of 6 children and a wife. We all needed new parents, so somehow Julie was nominated to do the job. Because of this role, she led most childhood games. I remember standing amongst the 6-foot dark green mustard flowers at an age of 7 or so, on one of those games, running from that fictional, horrible monster father that beat all of us. My sister Julie was the youngest that day, along with my sister Esther, 5 years older than me, and my brother, who was much older and stronger. I remember we had random children around us that day. It was windy, and if I could think of it hard enough, I can still fear the imaginary father running after as we scurried towards freedom, as fast as our little legs would carry us. A vicious father that followed us, surrounding our minds with certain doom, and we created the rest. I remember running through the long mustard flowers. I was too short to see the tops of the fences that flew around us, but I could see the dogs that followed, barking like they were part of our tragedy. The fluffy, swirling clouds in the sky, overwhelmed with raindrops like tears, only added to the passion of the story we created. My sister Esther, the one closest to my age, yelled, "Run, run, I think that's Dad. He has found us. Run, run, run." Her arms were around me, grasping me like an infant, holding me in her voice, the chance of me being a victim that she needed to take care of. She picked me up and took me in her arms. "Alec, nothing will happen to you," she assured me. "I won't let it." I believed those words. I believed we were invisible. I had every reason in the world to run away from home. And I remember enjoying the hope that I was capable of survival in a world as big as this, but that world I saw was nothing like the one I see now. It was a backyard a few miles into the country on my bicycle, or maybe a drive in the car with one of my parents behind the wheel. No, it was nothing like the world I see now, and I miss that world. This world I see now is one no one could have prepared me for, no matter how much they tried, no matter how honest a parent could have been. How that world back then was filled with dreams that could not end. I miss the simplicity of not knowing. Because of that day, I knew and my outcome is what I look at. If I could only wake you and tell you to listen, Troy, maybe then you could give me some sign as to the next steps I should take. But you sleep far too deeply for that, don't you? Anyway, on that day I ran, I felt this incredible freshness, like a boy that could never be harmed by the anger of anyone. The visions of kites flying and small raindrops falling, too tiny to see but large enough to feel, are all coming back to me. The wind and the rain, the father I feared but wanted so much to cure from his pains, and the ending of innocence all chased me in that game. In that game I learned to run, to pretend, to do whatever it takes to get away from all that hurts me. It was a vague beginning to all the colors this earth has given me. Colors like music. This music would teach me the dream of true love. That true love that I felt for you. I remember sitting in my room with a tape recorder by my side. I wanted to be a musician, so I got a tape recorder and I started to sing. The words I do not recall, but I am sure they were stranger than any words you'd hear from the mouth of a child. I was 7, but I sang about love and loss, as if I knew what I was talking about. I sang of true love, that true love that touches the world in a fairy tale moment. I sang of true love, of knowing someone so well you cannot fathom spending the rest of your life without them, as if knowing you could look into their eyes and see your future trials and tribulations, the realization that you found someone special. I sing a song that I would live with you. Thank you.